The quarterback situation in Denver, Colorado right now is not looking too good. Teddy Bridgewater still questionable with that concussion for their upcoming game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Vic Fangio was asked today if the team should start looking into free agency amid Teddy Bridgewater's injuries. What's the latest on Bridgewater, and what did Fangio say about the free agency comments?
All he's really said is that he feels like Teddy's doing okay. He hasn't really been too specific, but what he's implied is that there's kind of a feeling close to the building, let's just put it that way, that Teddy should be able to pass through concussion protocol by Friday to have some sort of a limited practice with the team. Now, that's assuming he does pass through protocol and does get signed off by an independent doctor. But if he is a limited participant in Friday, depending on how he looks, how he's able to handle that, the Broncos will make a decision, obviously, on whether or not to play him on Sunday in Pittsburgh. Now, meanwhile, Fangio was asked directly about the prospect of, hey, you got Drew Lock, who, if he starts this week against the Steelers, this would be his 19th career start. So although he is relatively young, he's not completely inexperienced. And then the Broncos have a backup behind Drew named Brett Rippon, who has started one game for the Broncos last year, a Week 4 game where he beat the Jets. But he is the epitome of inexperienced and relatively untested. And so it's behind them. There's no real, depending on how you want to define proven veteran depth at quarterback, it's Teddy, right? Teddy and then Drew's 18 starts. And so when Vic was asked directly, will you look outside the building, some free agents? He basically just said, we'll see where Teddy's at. So that's a can that I think the Broncos are kicking down the road, because I think worst case scenario in their minds is, hey, we might not have Teddy this week. And if that's the case, we've been through worse. We know what we have in Drew. It's the very same coaching staff that coached Drew Lock in Denver last year. So they'll be able to find a way to make some hay. I don't expect them or anticipate them to go off the roster and sign somebody, but you never know, because there are some big names out there like Cam Newton.
Yeah, and Cam Newton, obviously a guy that brings veteran experience to the table, something that they're missing with Bridgewater not being healthy right now, if you will. Would it make sense to give him a call? Would it make sense to even consider him?
I think it always makes sense to consider the move. Now, whether or not after you've considered it and gone through the analysis and evaluation, it makes sense to actually pick up the phone, give him a call. I don't really see it as far as Cam Newton in Denver, just because if it was a more, let's just say the timetable for Teddy's return was longer than, 2 weeks at most, which is basically what it is right now, then it would make a little bit more sense for me to say, hey, George Paton, go pick up the phone, call Cam Newton, see what he's up to, see if he can come do a workout, see if he can come in for a visit, and see if he can kind of bond with Pat Shurmur and Mike Shula, the top offensive assistants under Fangio. I just don't see that happen. I don't think they're at that stage quite yet, simply because they expect Teddy to be back sooner than later. And for what it's worth, everything they've said about Drew Lock since George Paton took over has been nothing but positive. So I think if they had to, even if there was a sense that, hey, Teddy's going to be out for a while, I'd still not be convinced you'd see the Broncos go off roster to sign a big name guy, maybe a backup to the backup that could come in as a true fail-safe. But they also really love Brett Rippon. The truth is, if Teddy Bridgewater goes down for an extended period of time, you're in a position, you are where you are. You're going to have to figure out a way to weather the storm with the horses that you have. And in the Broncos case, that wouldn't necessarily be catastrophic, because it's not as if Drew Lock is inexperienced in this scheme.
All right, well, the Denver Broncos take on the Pittsburgh Steelers this Sunday, and we should have some more clarity on Teddy Bridgewater's status by the end of the week. Chad, thanks so much.
Thanks, Claudette.